Hello, everyone.
Just getting started. Anyone home?
Actually, we have it up here too. Just hopefully you'll be able to see if people ask any questions as well.
And for many of you, you actually already posted some questions in our group. We're not going to dive in immediately because we want to give people a moment for this to pop up on their screen. Hi, Stephane. I hope I said your name right. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
There's actually new people joining our Facebook group to come to this, so have to occasionally look down and add people to the group.
Yeah, I think we had about 100 new members join in the last 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, apparently they didn't know we had this group, so good for them. They get to join the party.
So I guess we can get started. If you have any questions, obviously there's been questions that have been asked already. So we'll kind of go through those questions. But if you have questions as we go along, just feel free to ask them and we'll try to get there as we go along. Hello, Kristen. Hello, Paul. So let's get started. So one of the questions that we were asked was, what's the difference between workshops and group coaching? And one of the major differences at a workshop, it's like a one-off, meaning that you might do a 2 or 3 or 8 hour workshop in one day, and you have specific information that you're getting into. Whereas group coaching, you're really working with a clientele that has a need, that they all have this collective need that you're working on, and it's a relationship based. So it might be like a 6-week program where everyone's working on the same thing for about 6 weeks. We love group coaching, and if you're not doing group coaching, if you're doing one-on-one coaching, we highly suggest for you to look at the benefits of group coaching and see how you can implement it in your business. One is because you get to serve more people. You get to really make a bigger impact. And 2, it really frees your time. Like for us, when we started doing group coaching, it really transformed our business because we're no longer dependent on just doing an hour here, an hour there, just for one client. All of a sudden, we could see 5 or 6 or 7 people. Also, one of the differences between group coaching is that you tend to limit it to a smaller group because it's a little bit more intimate. Also, within the group coaching, one of the benefits is that it helps people really develop relationships with each other. It helps them develop accountability with each other. So it's not just about you bringing insight. There's something to be said about the whole group, providing insight and knowledge with each other to help each other grow. So hello, Katrina. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, guys. So I want to add to what he's saying there about, the reason why it's great that someone asked about workshops and group coaching is because both of them are actually extremely important tools for life coaches. And like Joel pointed out, a workshop usually is a one-time event, whereas group programs are longer. However, I also want to point out that these can be in person, but they can also be online. Actually, most coaches that we know when they do their group coaching programs, they're actually doing them virtually. And so what that does is it allows you to reach a lot of people at one time, and you also don't have to limit yourself to only people who come to your in-person space, people who live nearby. So it's a great tool. And a workshop technically could be virtual too, because you could do it as a webinar. So it's just remembering that whether you do it in person or online, that you have that choice. And so a workshop is a really good way of basically marketing your coaching. And we actually have a whole course that talks about this, but I'll just explain it briefly. So if you give a workshop and your workshop is designed around something specific that you focus on in your coaching, that is one of your biggest needs that your clients tend to have. And so in this workshop, it could be an hour, it could be 3 hours. You are going to dive into this topic and you're going to work with a group of people and everyone's going to be working on this together. You can really get them some great results in that workshop. And if you look at the blueprint that we give for how to do a workshop for the purposes of enrolling people in your coaching, while you're doing this workshop, you can also be kind of planting the seeds or gently hinting at the fact hey, I can do even more with you if we work one-on-one as a coach. And so the workshop can provide value and you can do it for free or you can charge people to come and you can make money off of it, but it's also a good way for people to get to know you so they can decide whether or not they want you to be their coach. And so then again, the group program is basically you're working more like on a curriculum that's based on what you focus on in your coaching, and you can do it for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks. You could do it once a month for a year. There's many different ways to do it, but the whole idea is, instead of, like, if you're anything like this, anytime we coach someone, there's certain things, especially because we focus on specific topics, there's certain things we tend to do with every single client, certain conversations that come up every time, certain things that we're teaching them with every person. So the idea of group coaching sorry, is that instead of having to repeat yourself 10 times for 10 different clients, you could say it one time with all 10 clients together at the same time. And it also gives you an option to offer a lower cost program, because instead of charging for your time for one person, it's almost like those 10 people are all chipping in to pay for your time. In a nutshell, that's the goal of group coaching.
And I would also add that the workshop just makes sure that you're adding value. Even if you're selling your services, you got to add tremendous value. And anything that you do, you have to add value to the people that you might work with. Even if they never hire you, you want them to leave there knowing that they've acquired some type of skill, some type of knowledge, because they will refer people to you. They might not hire you, but they will refer people to you. And for us, one of the best ways that we grew our coaching business was through workshops and speaking and just providing value to the community. Because then we would go places and people would say, hey, Joeel and Natalie, I had a friend that went to your workshop. You know, they said they loved it and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and that helped us grow tremendously. Another question that was asked was, how do you make coaching fun? And one of it has to do with your own energy and getting yourself in the right state. And it's kind of similar to a question that was asked about when we do videos or something like that, that we tend to be high energy. And really for us, we get to ourselves in that state before we meet a client, before we do a video, before we do anything. For example, even before we did this, we were listening to some music, getting all pumped up and dancing around and just having a good time, because we want to be in that state. You have to put yourself in that state. What gets you fired up? Is it a song, or just even if you have to meditate and get yourself in a state of gratitude, whatever it is. The second part is that depending on your coaching practice, for example, I love taking some of my clients on a walk in the park. I used to see some clients on the beach, and we would go for a walk and then sit down, process some stuff, talk about some things, and then we'd go for a little walk. And we would always have places where they could stop, you know, take some notes and things like that. These are clients that enjoy nature. But if they don't, you know, we could do it inside. I personally love nature, so I like that format. But I have many clients I see, for example, inside. And with those clients, you know, I tend to include things that we enjoy. For example, if I'm transitioning from one topic to another, or we might do laughter yoga or something like that, or we might do a quick meditation to get ourselves centered if we're transitioning. Or at the same time, at the end of the day, the best thing you could do is be in that state and just be fully immersed with your client. Whenever they say something little that they did that really was like eye-opening for them, or it changed their lives at some level, give them a high five or celebrate with them and get excited with them. And you don't have to fake it. For me, when my client says, you know, I had this insight that I didn't know, or I realized I had this limiting belief, but I was able to just let it go, or I was able to do something different. I get so excited for them because I know that one small thing can make such a big impact. So again, get yourself in that state and celebrate with them as you're going through that coaching process. Do things, be silly if you need to help them be in that state as well.
And so I also want to add, again, a lot of people do virtual coaching. So walking in the park obviously isn't going to work. However, it doesn't mean that you can't put yourself in a state, in a place where you're going to be comfortable and, you know, feel like you can go all in with your client. So whether that means like leaping around and getting excited, you know, you have to be in a place where you can do that. You can't be in a place where you're going to feel restricted or held back, because you want to enjoy yourself. And if you wanted, you could be walking in the park because you want to bring the best of yourself to it. And so that helps you bring your energy. It helps, you know, even if it's virtual, they're going to feed off of you. And so if you're doing it through video, which a lot of coaches do, some people use the phone, some people use video. So if you're doing video, again, you want to be in an environment that energizes you and energizes your client. So the environment that you're in while you're coaching someone is very important.
Yeah. And you got to remember there's something called mirror neurons. So that means that a person feeds off your energy. So even if it's congruent, like the way that you put your body language, if you have a confident body language, it gives them confidence because their brain is saying, I have to mirror this person, because that's how we interact with other people. Our brain is constantly trying to look at the interaction we have with someone else and feeding off of them. And as a person in authority, because you are as the coach, they're looking at you for guidance. They're looking at you for your insights, your wisdom. And really, they feed off that nonverbal communication that you're giving to them. So make sure that you're doing those poses that give you confidence. Make sure you're in that state physically, mentally, so that you can also give that to your clients.
And so actually, now that we have a lot more people who've joined, just for fun, it would be really neat if everyone would post where they're from. Because one of my favorite things about this group is that we're so international. And it looks like, at least on our end, we look frozen. So if you could let us know if we're frozen, that would be great.
And let me bring it up here. Hopefully we're not, and we're still live with you.
Pause.
Oh, I think we're back on. And as far as...
Okay, so we're having a little bit of a lag.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering why we're being quiet, we're trying to see everyone's questions. It's not showing for us. We also look frozen. So just give us a minute just to double check.
But I see a question that's popping up. I can't see the full questions because it's kind of frozen, but I'll kind of talk about it. And it says, I find that many people are uncomfortable with group coaching and talking about personal issues. And for the most part, you have to look at the client and their need and what they feel comfortable with. So you might have clients that are not going to be fully comfortable and that you can't have them in a group coaching environment. But at the same time, one of the most important things that you could do if you're having a group coaching session is in the initial group coaching, the first session is to really have icebreakers, have things where people are going to talk about, their personal stuff. And it could be something to help introduce themselves. It also helps when you're the one that sets the example by you sharing some of your insights, some of your vulnerabilities and things like that, because it helps people feel more comfortable. The more that you can create that, the more that you can create that feel and that environment where people are going to feel safe. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to run a father's group, and some of them were referred to me by the court system. Some of them were voluntary. But at the end of the day, it was a nurturing fathers program. People wanted to help, improve their parenting. And one of the things that ended up happening was that a lot of them at first would be like, oh, why do I have to be here? And things like that. And, throughout the first session and second session, that would slowly dissipate. By the third and fourth session, people would be crying and really talking about how they really wanted to improve their parenting. They couldn't believe some of the things that they had done and that they really wanted to connect with their children. So I think at our core, we all want to connect with people at a deep level. So it's important for us to set that example and be able to give that time for people to get to know each other. I also, if it's a larger group, I like to break them out to smaller groups and basically help them and do activities with them so they get to know people at a deeper level within that bigger group.
So in case anyone wasn't here in the beginning, if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can go ahead and add them in the chat. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but what we're going to do is look at everybody's questions after the fact, and it'll give us good ones to start with for the next time we do a Q&A, because this is something that we want to do regularly.
And another question was, how does a brand new coach build visibility online where they're coming from a job industry and not known as a coach? Thank you.
Hi, Kristen.
We love that you love the courses, so thank you. We appreciate that feedback. One of the things I would say is that one mistake that a lot of coaches make is that they try to be the expert coach, or they try to brand themselves and try to just say, I need to reach this many people to really have visibility and make a difference. I have to have, 10,000 followers on my Facebook, and I have to have all these things. And the reality is that you don't. The reality is that you first have to find your niche and find the community that you really want to connect to. Where are they at? Where are they interacting? Whether it's forums, whether it's specific groups and things like that. And then you connect to those communities. And that's how you kind of start building recognition. Because if you have your own page, for example, people are going to see some of the insights that you're sharing in these groups and some of the things that you're saying that you're part of these communities. They're going to want to go to your page. They're going to want to go to your website. Obviously, you have to do the foundational stuff. And you don't have to do this, but it does help if you have a website, if you do have a page, if you have something that gives social proof to what you're doing. But at the end of the day, to really build your brand, it's about one, creating content. You have to have content out there. So if you have a website, if you have a blog, if you have a Facebook thing, whatever it is, put content and information out there. But most importantly, put that content also and share that content wherever your intended audience is, because that's what's going to help you grow. You only need a couple people to help you start growing. You know, like I mentioned to somebody else, you know, if you want to make $100,000 a year, you don't need that many people. You can have 200 people, for example, and that only interact with you. They're your raving fans. They're part of your clientele, and they only pay a small monthly fee, and you can make six-figure income. So again, don't focus so much on how can I have this major brand. Focus how I can give value to a small number of people and then grow from there.
And it's also remembering everybody starts at the beginning.
Yep.
It's very unusual that someone comes into coaching with an existing list of people or a market. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can kind of bridge from where you came from. And anyone who, especially as part of this group, knows that we're constantly pushing people towards niche coaching. And so the reason for that, there's multiple reasons, but one is having your own specific niche that focuses on what you are uniquely good at. It makes it so that you can utilize your previous skills or experience in life. So if you're coming from a more traditional job, and maybe you work in a job where there are either you know certain things about your industry that would help other people in your industry, being a coach for people in that industry is one idea. Or maybe there's a skill set that you've developed that there's other people, regardless of what industry they're in, would benefit from having someone who understands that career set. Or maybe you've transitioned from one career to another and you learned the process of how that would work. You could work with other people who want to transition their career. Or maybe you have something you experienced in your personal life, whether it was, you know, going through a divorce and actually coming out on the other side really feeling empowered. You could help other people through that. And so if you pick a niche and you do something that you are uniquely good at, rather than just being a life coach, like an all-purpose life coach that can help all people with all things, if you focus on what you're good at, it makes it easier to make that transition from whatever it was that you were doing before, because you already know what you're doing. You're not starting from scratch. You're not completely clueless as to what you're supposed to do as a coach, because you're helping people through something you have done yourself. So it sets you up a very strong position. And then secondly, if you're working with people who have a very specific need, a very specific goal, and you're going to help them through that goal, then you can figure out who these people are. So if you're just saying, I'm a life coach, and you go into the world and you say that, most people are going to say, that's nice. What does that even mean? And so if you were going to go, for instance, and try to post things on your Facebook page, or maybe even join a Facebook group where you're going to talk about the fact that you're a life coach, what exactly would you post? You might not have an answer, but it's because regular life coaching, plain old, I can help any person with any goal, doesn't really work that well. What works well is focusing on something specific that you feel confident that you can help people with, and then knowing who the people are that need your help and going out and finding them. And so that whether you're doing in-person coaching or you're doing it online, it really is a matter of what am I focusing on and who needs me. So the most important thing any life coach can know is who is their target market, who is their ideal client.
And actually, I just want to elaborate because I couldn't see the full question. I think Katrina had asked this question as far as the group and people participating in group. The only other thing I would say is just keep in mind that you don't just start with like having something deep that might make people feel uncomfortable. You build up on that as you get people to get to know each other, as you get to create that safety and that trust. And also setting the foundation from the beginning. I like to make it clear that whatever is said in this group stays in this group, and that everyone honors that, and I get everyone to agree to that because I want people to trust that 100%. The other part is that somebody said, what equipment are we using? So I'll just show you real quick. We're actually using a Logitech C90 for this. C920, I'm sorry. So it's just
we have two of them.
We have two of them. So
they're our favorite.
Yeah. And then,
so it's a pretty inexpensive webcam, but both the camera and the mic are actually really good. But we're not using the mic for this one. I'll show you our mic. This one we have because we do podcasts. It's actually called the Podcaster. But it's not even really necessary if you're trying to do web content. We just have it. We do so much content that it's worth investing. It's not that high end of a mic, but it's a good one. It's good for audio for podcasting. That's why we use it. But just the one that comes with the webcam is good.
So
if you were wanting to do online content.
So I'm just putting in the name of it. It's kind of hard to
Rode
type in this.
Podcaster.
Rody.
Rody
Yep.
Podcaster. That's the microphone. And so, yeah, I know we get questions sometimes about what equipment we use, because we know that a lot of our students are also trying to create content, which is exciting because obviously we're passionate about it and we love doing it too.
As far as the size of the group, I would say that it really depends how you're setting up the group, and what your outcome is and how intimate you want to have that group. For us, for example, I like smaller groups. So for me, I like groups of 10s. I've done like group coaching where you have like 20 people in a group or 25 people. And even if you're doing it virtually, one of the good things about some of the platforms now is that you can actually separate people into smaller groups and do it that way. I've actually had bigger groups where I have about 40 people within a group, and then you segment it out, and then you just make sure that you connect people within that group to part of that group so they can really develop a relationship, and they hold each other accountable and help each other grow. And then at that point, you're really more as the facilitator of the group, you're kind of helping empower everyone at that stage. If I'm doing face-to-face group, I again, like for me, the ideal group size is usually around 10, where I can get to know people at a deeper level and can really help them grow much more than if I have a larger group than that. So,
and I actually want to, so if anyone is watching and you're not already in it, we do have a course that breaks down everything you need to know about doing group coaching, because there's a lot of different factors, and really it depends on the person. It depends on what you're trying to do. So for instance, we have done groups where we had a really big audience, but those groups were more like were more educational. So it was more like when we do a course where we're teaching information. So those groups can be really large because there's not a lot of engagement in between the different people. People aren't asking a lot of questions. But if you're doing a group that's more engaged, where they're going to be talking to each other and you're going to be doing group discussions, then a small group is better. And also, again, to touch on that factor that some people feel uncomfortable in groups, if you're dealing with a topic that's extremely sensitive, then groups might not work. But at the same time, if you properly create and facilitate a group where that builds trust within the group, then it can actually be a really powerful place for people to feel comfortable to talk publicly about things that they're normally not comfortable with. But you do have to, as the facilitator, you have to learn the skills and the techniques for how to create a safe environment like that. And so it's more than we can get into here, but just know that we do have information about how to do that in our course.
And Roxanne had asked, I'm currently a critical care nurse and do coaching with my patients and family and shift from topic to all types of topics. How do I bridge that to public since I cover so many topics? Obviously, I don't know the full extent of it. I think we're frozen again. Hopefully we're not. Nope. It looks like we might still be working. One of the things I would say is that when you're really looking at what you're going to do is to, as a nurse, if you're doing this all the time, then you're getting feedback of what really you're passionate most about. And you might start seeing, like I would actually start journaling and writing down, like, what are some of the top things that my clients are asking me? What are some of the top things that I'm coaching people on? Because at the end of the day, you can have an umbrella thing that you're doing, but when you're putting it out to the general public, then you have to understand their pain points more than anything. You have to understand what their needs are. So if you develop an understanding of what are the trends that are happening here, what are some of the things that keep repeating over and over again? What is the biggest need that some of these clients have? Because if you determine and you have an understanding of what that need is, you might start understanding, well, this is a big need that I keep coming across over and over again. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, that I really feel like I can help people transform their lives, or I can give insights, or I can help coach people through this process. And because you do it every day, it's like such a big blessing. I think there's a lot of people out there that are in careers or wanting to get into coaching, but don't have the access to it because of the fact that you do, it's going to help you get a lot more insight And by being able to get that insight, that's going to be your best answer overall. And tying that insight with what you're passionate about is what's going to create a successful life coaching business for the most part.
And actually, a lot of people are in a similar situation in the fact that there's multiple topics that they feel like they could coach on. And we get the question a lot. It's like, okay, so I could talk about these. I mean, I could do coaching on these 5 different topics. How do I pick which one to do? And so if you find yourself in that situation, there's a few things to consider. Is that one, what is the thing that's the easiest for you? What do you feel the most comfortable with? Because you could start there. The other one would be, especially if all 5 of these things are for the same target market. So for instance, if you are in nursing, you might notice there's these 5 different areas. How would I pick one? Is ask yourself, what's the number one most important thing that my potential clients would want? What's that one thing that they need it so bad it would make them reach out and commit to coaching? And then once you have them in the door, then you can potentially offer them the other things. So what's the one thing that's the hook? You always want to think about it from their perspective. Like you might be like, oh my gosh, I know that this would change people's lives. But if the other people don't know that they would need that, then what you have to do is you have to figure out, what do they know that they need? What pain are they experiencing? What challenges are they overcoming? And then bridge the gap from the problem that they're having to the solution you have. Because if they don't know that they need your solution, then you're not going to be able to get them to understand.
So another random question by Paul is, what hair gel do you use? And I'm assuming you're talking to me because she doesn't use gel,
I don't
right?
use anything in my
So,
hair.
got to be ultra glued. And if I'm feeling very sassy, I might use Spiker. I know it's a random gel. You know, our friend who's a hairstylist gave it to me, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. So if I'm feeling very sassy and I want to just spike it up like crazy, then I go with this one. If not, I just stick to this one.
And Peggy's asking if we're going to address questions that people had written on the other page. We did actually take an inventory of questions before we started, but if anyone has added any basically today, then you might want to retype them because we looked at them this morning. So,
and then one of the questions that was asked is launching your first ad. And one of the things that I would say about that is that it really depends on where you're launching that ad. Because if you're doing, for example, a local magazine, it's going to be very different than if you're doing it on Facebook or something like that. And if you're doing it, for example, in a local publication, and even for us, you know, obviously we had a local magazine, local publication. We worked with media in the local community. And one of the things that I would suggest is, first, when you contact them and you're going to put an ad, you want to get insights from them of what tends to be converting. What are some of the ads that really stick out that people are telling them, hey, I ran this ad and I really am getting a lot of phone calls, because they might give you insights that you won't know otherwise, because depending on the population that you're targeting, it's going to be a different need. The other thing that I would say is that try to keep it simple and don't put too much content out there, because it overwhelms people. So a lot of people would like to put a lot of words and stuff like that. And you want to make sure that you're getting to the outcome that you're presenting. I know that you had mentioned somewhere in the comment is like, you know, I'm new to coaching, or I have a, you know, new service. I would actually stay away from letting people know that you're new, because one of the things that they're going to do is look for the credibility in whatever that you're presenting. The other part is that you have to remember that people make decisions based on emotions, not logical thinking, not logical processing, where they're going to be like, you know something, I'm going to critically think about this, and I think coaching would be a good idea because this, or that. People don't do that. Reality is that advertising is an emotional decision, so you have to make sure that when you're talking to people, that you're triggering emotions within them that's going to help them create action. So how do you do that? You help them understand that you know their pain point and that you can help that pain point. So you might start something where like, would you like to blah, 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 or how would your life change if blah, blah, blah? So a lot of times, you know, you start with a pain point and you can give them a solution or something like that to help them understand that you understand what they're going through, and that all they have to do is contact you, work with you, to then get that outcome that they're really trying to get.
Well, that's why you'll see a lot of ads that say, are you frustrated with XYZ? Well, if this sounds like you, then they explain what it is that they can do, because they're trying to help you remember what problem you have, because you're just innocently, especially on Facebook, you're just innocently scrolling through things on Facebook, and then this ad pops up. So they need to remind you of what your problem is, that you're probably trying not to think about. And there's a really gross phrase for that you might have heard us use before, but you have to scratch the scab. I know it's disgusting, but it's like someone has pain in their life that they want to fix, but they're trying to pretend it's not there. It's covered up with a scab. And so if you scratch the scab and you remind them that it's there, and then you present them with a solution to their pain, like some sort of nice ointment, then it catches their attention, and it makes them, it again triggers that emotional state, because people are only going to be interested in coaching or any other service or product if it gets them an outcome that they actually truly need and want. It can't be something that's just like, oh yeah, that'd be nice. It has to be something that really matters to them. So before you go placing any sort of ads at all, you have to be very clear, what outcome are you offering, and what pain, whether it's a problem, an emotional pain, a challenge that people are going through, a life circumstance that they have to deal with, whatever that is, you have to be really clear about what they're struggling with and the result you can get them. And then that's what you talk about in your ad. So if you're not clear about that yet, it's probably not time to advertise.
And I see a lot of mistakes, and even us running a magazine, that people would run ads and they would make it about them.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you could do, because you will never get any, you will never get any results from that. You have to make sure that the ad's about your client. You have to make sure that they're reading and they're like, oh my God, they use my language. It's like, they talk to me. It's like, they understand me. So, and if you're doing like Facebook ads and things like that, Facebook, you can really target the population and what they're interested in and stuff like that. So just make sure that you're just not running general ads, that you're going in there and you're saying this specific people are looking for this, this, and that, and you can actually be very specific. And even if you know that they're part of groups or other pages, you can tag those groups and pages to make sure that you're targeting those people in particular. The other part, if you're like, I'm not great at making ads, like graphically, like making it look great or whatever, and even the wording, you can go to Upwork, and I've used Upwork. We know people, even like Peter Diamandis, who created the X Prices. He uses Upworks, and if you don't know who that is, he's the one that helped send the first space rockets to space privately and DNA sequencing and stuff like that. But anyways.
High level stuff.
But anyone can use it, and you can get it real cost effective. You might be able to have someone make an ad for you for like $10 in Upwork that knows how to do graphics and can put something pretty together or something like that.
And then there's also Fiverr.com. That's Fiverr, if you've never heard of it. You could just go in there and specifically post graphic for Facebook ad. And you'll find people who you can see examples of ones they've done, and they can charge as little as $5, and they can do it for you. So you don't have to know how to do everything. Just like if you're absolutely terrible at writing, you can also hire someone that will write the text for your ad. And you're looking at a relatively inexpensive thing. But for the most part, most coaches we've ever worked with, they're capable of doing it themselves. One little trick, if you're not extremely graphically inclined, a really great way to make graphics is using Microsoft PowerPoint, because it's really easy to make the frame the size that you want, and you can easily add different images and text, and it's really easy to use. So if you have always wondered, how can I make it myself? PowerPoint's a good option. There's also a free service called Canva, Canva, and you can get that online. You can also get it on an app on your phone, and it has all these pre-made templates, even organized. You can actually go and look at a bunch of templates that are specifically made for Facebook. And also, just as a quick side note, if you are ever going to do Facebook ads and you're doing it with an image, the image can only have a little tiny bit of text on it. They're very strict. So you can't put like a graphic that has all these lines of text, because it'll get blocked by Facebook.
And really, it's not just about the image that you use, it's the words the storyline that you're creating in your ad. So don't just say, hey, you want coaching. You have to, again, create a storyline of what it is that you're really helping people through. And again, she mentioned Fiverr. We've used Fiverr a long time ago, but I personally love Upwork, because you can get people from different parts of the world that are experts. You can get them cost effectively. You can see some of the reviews and stuff like that. And even like running your Facebook ads, you can pay somebody maybe $15 to optimize your Facebook ad. You tell them what the population is, and they'll get all the keywords and everything for you. So you can do that. One person also asked, let me see who it was, if this decides to cooperate with me, about team coaching. Oh, Paul, do you recommend team coaching? I'm assuming with team coaching, you're talking about working with different coaches and partnering with them to work on an individual. Not like having like the groups where you put people on teams and stuff like that. But if I'm correct, what I would say is that team coaching is great. We've actually partnered with people before and we've collaborated with them, people that are better in specific areas. And we work with people to create really transformation. And mostly we've had people contact us and say, would you want to do a team process with this individual? And we have partnered with them. One important thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you are really in alignment with the people that you're coaching, that your philosophy in coaching is the same, because you don't want to be working with people and then kind of throwing them off because they're telling them one thing and you're telling them something completely different, or you're having them give some tools and then they're giving contradicting tools. So you really want to make sure that you are connected and aligned with them at a deep level, understand where they're coming from, and really understand what their philosophy really is. So, for example, I've worked with people that are therapists and coaches, and they had more Freudian philosophy, which is, if you're messed up from your past, you'll be probably messed up for the rest of your life for the most part. But, there are things that you could do to mitigate that, where I'm more of a person, come from a Carl Rogers humanistic perspective, meaning that you can change your life at any point, look at the best in people and things like that. So I come more from the positive psychology side of things.
And so there was a question in there I saw, it's scrolled somewhere, so I can't see who it was, but asking about, do we have any course or could we make one that teaches about marketing?
I think it was Barbie.
And so the answer is we do have one specific one that teaches about email campaigns. So that would include, creating landing pages. It gets into ads, but not the specifics of how to run the ad itself. But basically, where would you send the traffic to? How would you create a landing page that then would get people to enroll? And then once they enroll, how do you create an email campaign that follows up to enroll them? And so we partnered with one of our own marketing partners who created the course with us. And we also talk about the psychology of email marketing, all of it. So it's actually, we do have one. We also have another one in the works that's going to come out hopefully within the next several months. That's going to be about Facebook. And so we are working on what we're trying to do when it comes to marketing is bring in experts that specialize in the different aspects of marketing, so that it's not just, because we can teach you what we do and what we've learned, but other people have more to add. So we're bringing in more people who can teach on those topics. But I do want to point out that 90% of the success we have had in every business that we have ever done has had nothing to do with traditional advertising. Yeah. And I want you to really hear that, because most people, and I'm just going to say it the truth, most people say, my idea of marketing is I'm going to make a business card and a website. And then they wonder how they get no clients.
Or throw money into Facebook.
Right. Or they just randomly throw money into Facebook ads or something like that without understanding what they're doing, and they get very frustrated. And so we're kind of on a mission to help people understand that marketing is much more organic than that. It really is more about relationships and connections. And so we actually have several courses that are designed to teach marketing for life coaches, but it's not Facebook, social media, putting ads. It's not any of that. It's about doing joint ventures. So that's one of the courses that we have, because it's a really effective way of getting coaching clients. And one of the things that you would do with joint ventures is actually just simple networking. And I think that people seem to think for some reason that is actually harder than marketing in a more traditional sense, but it's not, because you're getting rid of that barrier where people don't know who you are. When you network with them, they get to meet you. And so it's just one example of that. Marketing doesn't have to be through these traditional channels. If you're overwhelmed by the technology or you don't have a lot of money to spend, there are many, many, many other things that you can do that are completely free. or extremely low cost. So don't feel like in order to be a life coach, I have to go, master funnels and Facebook ads, because you could do it without any of that.
Yeah.
So I want 90% of our success has not come from those techniques. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't work. It's that everything else works better. And we have so many topics we could go into on that, but for the interest of time, we won't get into it. But just know that you don't have to do these things. So it's just freaking you out even having us talk about it. No, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, and we know people that spend $1 million a year on Facebook ads.
It's mental.
It's mental. We have friends that spend, tens of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook ads. So, and it works, but it takes time to really optimize your ads. It takes time to really understand and really continue to target it and make mistakes and things like that. But like Natalie was saying, even I'll give you an example. Some of the coaching things and some of the ways that we were connecting initially is that we were interviewed by people. We reached out to people. We would put like a column or something like that, a post on somebody else's thing. We would interview people. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our first people that we interviewed was Dr. Kinslow, which
he developed his method is called quantum entrainment.
Yeah, and we interviewed him, and he had a large following. So because he had a large following, some of those followings looked at what we were doing, and then they were interested, and then they started following us. At the same time with the magazine, we launched it with just a vision. We had this vision of something we could create. We started talking to people with this like printed thing with glossy paper and telling them about our vision of creating this magazine. We contacted 600 businesses in the first month and made it happen. With our center, the same thing. It's like we connected to the community in different ways. We went to like events, and we went to like volunteer in different things, and just connected to the community, because the more connected you are, the more people will refer you. And what we found is all about networking. It's all about connecting to people. And if you can connect to the right person, they can quantum leap whatever you're trying to do. So proximity is the key to success in any business. So, and it's not about, I want to be friends with you just because you might have a list or you might have the thing. Really, are you adding value to them? How are you connecting to them at a deep level? What are some of their needs that they might have that you may be able to help out with those needs? And a lot of times what I found is that people are very open sometimes to sharing their journey, to contributing back, to being interviewed, to sharing their insights. People love talking about their journey. So get those insights and see how you can be part of that world, whether, again, it's going to workshops or participating at some other level to really get that proximity.
And so Barbie just was mentioning that, for instance, when she goes to a church or a school or any other venue, the first thing they ask for is a business card and a website. And so we want to point out that having the business card and the website is important. But unfortunately, most people think that once you have that you'll get business. And that's not how it works. You have to have it, and actually technically you don't, because you can start without it and then build it when it's time. And as far as websites go, just build one on Wix. Anyone can figure it out. Don't put a lot of money into it at first. The problem is and this is something that holds a lot of life coaches back. They feel like they have to have this huge structure around their coaching before they can feel confident coaching. And so they will keep putting it off and putting it off. Oh, and I can't do it until I have this perfect website, and I can't do it until I have this perfect business card, and I can't do it until I have my Facebook set up and I have my professional pictures done. And all of those are excuses why not to coach. So the best thing you can do is find anyone that will let you coach them and just start coaching, instead of giving yourself another thing to add to your list of things you have to do before you coach. And so yes, I will preach. So my point was that it's not that you don't want to have those things, it's that you can't just put up a website and think it's going to get found. Even with doing SEO to get traffic organically through Google, that's still really hard to get yourself ranking high enough, unless you have a highly targeted niche and a lot of good content on your site where you're going to get found through Google organically. So we're not poo-pooing on the traditional methods, but we're letting you know that you need to be doing more than that. And for instance, one of the courses that we talked about at the beginning of this that we have, it teaches you how to speak, whether it's doing a workshop or a short presentation at some sort of an organization or a company where your potential clients might be. To speak in front of people is probably the best possible way to get coaching clients for a bazillion reasons. It's a really good example of what Joel was saying about collaborating with other businesses or people that already have the clients that you're looking for. And so, for example, if there was maybe a nonprofit in your community that serves women, that maybe maybe they had a run-in with the law, or maybe they are there because they were in an abusive relationship, whatever the reason is, if your coaching niche specifically could help that population, then you can offer a workshop or a speech at a place like that and offer your services. Now, of course, you have to be mindful of the fact that your intended audience has to be able to pay you, but it's just an example of that there are organizations out there that already have the audience that you want. And so if you offer them something that adds value to their own customers and clients, then they will welcome you. And then you obviously have to set an arrangement with them to find out what you are and aren't allowed to do, because some places won't let you sell from the stage. But people are still welcome to sign up for your email list after. You can have information available, and the people who are interested will come to you. And it's just getting yourself out there. And so that is probably the number one way, is being in front of people. But you can also do that without having to speak somewhere in person. It's basically, like he said, proximity, putting yourself in the environment, whether in person or online, where your target customers are.
Yep. And one of the things that Paul said, and is really what we really believe in, is that if you add value to your market, the market will come to you. And also, like Natalie's saying, it's a lot easier to go where your market's at and partner with those people and collaborate than try to get one person at a time and try to figure out how to convince that person that you might be the person that they need and things like that. And Peggy had asked about the joint venture, and really joint ventures are the best way to do business without spending any money. Because really for joint ventures, you're not paying someone to partner with them. You're not paying someone to add value to their business. You just are adding value to their business, and that way they can help promote you and things like that. So,
and actually, just for one example, and for some reason this is always the example that comes to my mind spontaneously, but I have a whole list somewhere. But if you were a personal trainer and someone came to you and said, I'm a health coach and I help people create a meal plan and a schedule for their week that gives them the time for the exercise that they need, as well as plans their meals, whatever that is. And so someone comes to you and says this, and you're a personal trainer, you'd be like, well, this is interesting, because I have these clients that are concerned about their health, and I would love for them to be more accountable so that they continue to come on a more regular basis. So maybe I could partner with this coach, and I could refer people to the coach, or the coach could refer people to me. And so that's just one example of a collaborative relationship where there's someone else out there that their clients could use your service. And maybe your clients could use their service. And so one of the brainstorming activities that we mention in a lot of our courses that are talking about target marketing or joint ventures is always thinking of what other businesses or individuals that have clients, so an independent business, already are working with the people that I want. Mm-hmm. And that once you know that, you can either collaborate with them directly, or you can just put yourself in that environment. So for instance, if your people in your local market would tend to go to a specific restaurant, you could just happen to be at that restaurant. If they have a tendency to be part of a specific meetup group, for instance, you could join that meetup group. So you need to know who they are and then go where they are. And if you're online, one good example is if there's a specific type of Facebook group where your clients would be, you could join that Facebook group. And actually, I'm going to use our Facebook group as an example. So occasionally someone sneaks in here that's not one of our students, which is okay if there's a few that aren't our students already, even though it is for students, but are basically joining our group and then trying to fish for clients and sell to our group members. And so they're being smart, where they're saying, my target clients are other coaches or aspiring coaches. And so they try to get into our group, and then they try to contact some of you or post things to promote themselves. And so even though it's totally inappropriate the way that they're doing it, we end up kicking them out. There are groups where that if you did it properly, it would be a good way to meet people. Now, you don't want to just go into a group and just post stuff advertising yourself. You want to engage in the group. You want to get to know people. You want to get so good at being part of the conversation that people on their own reach out to you for advice, and that's how you get the client. So when you see those people, feel free to flag them if you see someone being naughty in our group, but also observe what they're doing for a good example of what not to do if you're trying to infiltrate into a group.
Well, it really is about building community. So just to answer a couple quick questions, and then we have a bigger question. But somebody says, how do you deliver with energy? And I kind of answered that a little bit. They're talking about our videos and producing content, and do we use a script? One thing is that, again, I dance like a baboon right in front of the camera right before we do any recording. I literally throw my hands up. I put myself in that state. I get excited. And really it's the physiology. Like whatever you do, you have to put yourself in the physical state to develop that energy. Even just putting your hands up in the sky and smiling actually tells your body to produce those chemicals that make you feel good. So you want to be in that state whatever you're doing. The other part is that, do we use scripts or are we spontaneous? It really depends on the video that we're doing. And if we want to make sure, sometimes we'll have a couple bullet points here or there of things that we want to make sure that we cover during that video. Sometimes, we have a full script that we write out, and sometimes we're spontaneous. It really depends on what we're trying to do and what we feel it would be best for that video.
And actually, I want to point out that when you're going to be speaking or teaching about something that you're really familiar with, then I recommend challenging yourself to basically use just simple bullet points as a prompt and to speak naturally about it, because if you know this stuff, then once you start going, it will flow naturally. The times that we use a script is when we're covering content that's very complex that we might be less familiar with. And then obviously there's somewhere in between depending on the content.
Or that we want to make sure that we get across everything very specifically. But me personally, I just tend to put a lot of bullet points because I like that ability to kind of dance with the topic and really feel it, So
he likes to be random.
Yeah, I do. So I like to use random words sometimes too.
Yeah.
But another question is about the General Data Protection Regulation in the UE. And one thing I would say about that, it really depends on, if you're collecting data from people, is that you really have to have consent of how you use that data. And you have to protect that data. So really what it does is that in the UE, they're a lot stricter than they are in the United States with how you use people's data. So if you're accepting people's emails, if you're taking their bank accounts, if you're taking personal information about them, whether it's health or anything like that, you have to make sure that they're consenting to every single part of that you're actually taking from them. And you also have to be making sure that you're protecting it. So if you have a large team, make sure that only a certain amount of your team, and you have to be able to justify how you're handling and what you're doing with that data. Also, you can't be sharing that data with someone else. So if you have somebody that, for example, you're partnering with and you're doing a webinar with, you can't just give that person your email list and have them use it to market or whatever it is in a collaboration. You have to have people's consent before you give that away to anything else. So again, using that opt-ins, reaching out to your audience. If there's a data breach, letting people know that there was and what you're doing about it, keeping people informed will, for the most part, keep you out of trouble. So just kind of keep that in mind. And that's basically
I want to add a disclaimer. So if you have been to our websites, you'll see not all of it has this on it. Part of it is because we are in the process of making a new website. So we are going to have it on the new version. But right now, it's currently being worked on. Yeah. Everything's being readjusted, so if it's not showing, then that's why we're naughty.
Yeah, but really, that's what it is as you're continuously developing, and that's what you have to look at as a person that's creating a coaching business or any other type of business, is that it's not a just one-time thing. You can't just be working in your business all the time. You have to be working on your business. That means that, for example, once a week, we have a 90-minute meeting with the handful of people that we work with, and really just a couple people that we really assess where we're at with our business, what we're trying to do, how can we give more value, And then we have specific questions that we go on every week for, every Monday for 90 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're stepping back once in a while. And for many entrepreneurs, what happens is that they're so in it. They're so in their business that they miss a lot of opportunities, that they get all perplexed, confused, and they're not able to really work outside of that and make their business grow and really give the value that they want.
And actually, we have
one more thing about that.
About the.
So you also have to have a right to forget. So if someone emails you and say, I want you to delete all my data, you have to be able and capable of deleting all the data. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's no joke. If someone asks you to remove them, then you definitely have to do it, because if they catch you sending them something again, they could technically report you. I think the person who originally asked the question about that new notice you have to have, obviously if you are in the UE, then go and do it immediately, because they're going to police it more there. If you're not and you don't know how to do it, look up how to do it. It's actually not that hard, but you do have to address it. You do have to do it at some point. And actually, there's a few things before we start to wrap up. Just want to comment on a couple things that other people said. First,
Shah, thank you.
Yes, Shah, we
appreciate that, the feedback.
That you find that our classes are basically more robust than some others out there, and we try. And Paul's being funny. Our mic drop moments, but yes, we were dancing like baboons.
We tend to do
started.
that
Because even it's so funny. We're so used to being on camera and getting on stage and stuff, but we still get nervous. And sometimes even the Q&As are more nerve-wracking for me than other stuff, because I don't know. You're vulnerable. It's just awkward.
Actually, it's funny that that, for example, the video editor Victor, he always makes fun of us too, because I'll be with a dress shirt and then I'll have my swimming trunks underneath. So it's and he's like, sometimes you should crop out so people see how you're really presenting.
Yeah, I think our video editor is actually secretly hoarding ridiculous clips of us that he takes out of our videos, and someday he's going to make us release a bloopers video. So we'll let you know when he makes us do it.
Because really at our core is that we want people to understand that you also have to have balance. We love what we do. We love our lives. We're semi beach bums, so we love to be at the beach and stuff like that. So, whatever you do, you got to continue to find your passion, because that's what's going to help you stay motivated. And we're going to answer one major question in a second, but Tanya was asking about, do you offer CEUs for all your courses you offer? And actually, that's something that we're going to start doing in the next couple of months. We'll be releasing something else.
And actually, I want to point out there's a difference between CPDs and CEUs. And so technically, we can offer CPDs on all of our courses. And in many cases, they are accepted as a CEU. So CPD is continuing professional development, and it is from the UK, but it's internationally recognized. A CEU is a continuing education unit, which is from the United States. Sometimes it's just a CE, and there are specific fields that need them. But some fields have extensive requirements for a CE that our CPD credits do not meet. So we can't guarantee that they are valid for every person's situation. So we always recommend people checking with their governing body for whatever field they're in before they buy them. But obviously, they're not very expensive, so it's not a big deal. But if you
do buy them, and if you do purchase CPD credits, for example, and your organization for some reason won't take it, you can let us know.
Yeah,
we'll give you a refund. And Anita, you're right. I kind of misspoke, so thank you for clarifying
EU,
that.
not the
So I apologize about that. And so we'll kind of get into one of the other questions. Somebody was asking about questions that you would use in coaching, and this is something that we actually go extensively in the life coaching course that we have, the professional
life coach certification. Yeah. And actually, I want to add here that this will be, it's kind of a long answer, and I think it's really important, and it'll kind of be like the ending to this. It's already been an hour, so we don't want to keep you guys here too long.
And we also got to pick up our little teenager from school.
And so we got to go through this quickly. We can actually post this. And so in our professional life coach certification course, or the life coaching guide, whatever you want to call it, we do have a lot of information about what questions to use while you're coaching. And so this is actually somewhat different than what we talk about. It's more of a summary. And so I'm going to first go over what are basically the top 5? Someone asked, what are the 5 questions that I should use with every client? And so first, my disclaimer is it really, really depends on what your coaching is focused on. So for instance, if you're helping them achieve a goal, is it any goal they might have, or is it a goal that you're working towards because of your niche? Are you helping them get past an obstacle? Are you helping them deal with stress? Are you helping them change their mindset because they're holding themselves back with their limiting beliefs? So that really makes a difference what questions you should be asking them. But that aside, there are 5 things that you would want to address before you start coaching someone. So you could do this with a questionnaire, or you could do this in your first coaching session. So basically, the first thing is, what result do you want to achieve by working together in this coaching relationship? Because you need to know what they're trying to get out of it. It might, even if you have a specific niche that you're focusing on, you still need to know from their perspective, like, what are they hoping to accomplish by the end of this designated coaching program?
Yeah, and you also want to ask them, like, what is the big reason that you want to achieve this goal? Or make this change in your life? Because you have to know your big why. You have to know what's driving them. One of the best ways to influence people is to know what influences them. So if you know what influences them, like if you know their big why, then you can use that why in your coaching process to really help them come along and remind them of that why when they're like feeling a little scared of the unknown, of the certainty to go take that next step. So you really want to touch upon that. And you also want to look at that pain and pleasure. So what will happen if you don't achieve it? Because realistically, some people don't recognize that if I don't achieve this like in a year, in 5 years, how is that going to hold me back? How is that going to take away from the life that I want to create? So really understand their why and what gets them excited, and also what will happen if they don't achieve that. Because once you understand that, it's a lot easier to help them stay motivated as you go along.
And then the third question is really getting them to recognize their emotional state, because that's what moves people. So they might give you a reason, and it might be some sort of outcome they want. But truly, all outcomes people want are because of how they're going to feel when they get them. So the third question would be, how do you feel about this desire? And it could be like this desire, this change, this problem, whatever it is you're coaching them on. And what you're trying to get a sense for is, are they feeling hopeful about it? Like, are they coming into this really excited? Or are they feeling discouraged and nervous? Are they doing this because they're desperate for change? Or are they doing this because they're following their inspiration? So you're trying to help them identify so that you understand what is the emotion that's driving them to seek to make this change. Because, to be honest, most people aren't ready to hire a life coach. So you have to really want it. So you really need to understand what's going on with them emotionally.
And the other thing is, like, what's that big obstacle that could get in your way?
Like, why do they need the coach? If this obstacle wasn't there, they could just do it, right?
Yeah.
So what's the obstacle that
obstacle?
makes a coach needed?
Yeah. And by knowing what obstacles might come up, you can help strategize of what to do when they do come up. So when they have that challenge, that obstacle that comes up in their life, they're like, oh no, what do I do? Let me go back to what I'm used to doing that wasn't working before, that's holding me back. So keep in mind that the more that you know what those obstacles are, then you can address them. You can say, okay, if this happens, let's see what we can do about that, so that when the time comes up, you already know what to do. It's just like what I tell clients. Some of my clients will say, I have a really hard time saying no to people. So what do? We preemptively come up with statements and words that they can use to say no to people in their lives, so that when it comes up, they're not freaked out. They're not anxious about it. They already know what they're going to say, that they feel comfortable with, and they practice it.
And then the fifth one is getting them to be honest about what's the biggest limit that they're going to place on themselves. So they might know themselves well enough to know, like, in what way they're going to try to talk themselves out of it. Maybe they know that they're going to procrastinate. Maybe they know that they're going to try to skip their appointments. Maybe they know that they're going to be overcommitted to other things and they're going to forget to do their homework. Or maybe they already know that they're going to feel guilty taking the time away from their kids. Like, whatever it is, that if you ask them to be honest with you about how are you going to limit yourself, that's going to give you the tool that you need to be able to notice when it's happening. And so the second part of that question is, ask them, what would you want me to do to bring your attention to it if you do this? So if you procrastinate, what do you want me to do? Because some people might say, I want you to plainly call me out on my shit. Yeah. And other people are going to say that they want you to be a little bit more gentle. Yeah. So ask them, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just blatantly say it? Do you want me to send you an email if you haven't submitted it by a certain time? Should I email you? Like whatever it is, that they know themselves and they'll be honest if you ask. So those are the things that we would say are the 5 most important things that you need to ask any new client, either before or during your first session.
Yep. And obviously we have, when we work with our clients, there are certain things that we ask, those questions that we ask before the session, so we can have a better understanding of what it is that we're working with and what we're trying to achieve during the sessions and things like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Also, just one thing that I see a lot of coaches struggle with, and one of the key questions is also how you reframe a situation when somebody is going on this negative kick of looking at, oh, this is terrible, this happened to me, or look at how bad my day was going, or look at what this person said or did. I always try to reframe that back. It's like, what can we learn from this? What benefit can come out of that situation? How can that situation help you move forward? Making sure that you're always bringing the person back into understanding that life is happening for them and not to them. So when you have the perspective of life is happening for you, then you realize that every situation, whether good and bad, is happening for you to help you grow and to help you develop in your lives. So you don't see things as negative, you just see those as stepping stones to whatever it is that you want to achieve long term.
And so we are getting to the place where we need to be wrapping it up. So if you joined in partway through this, after it's done, it takes several minutes, but it will become available as a video in the group. So it's going to stay up so you can come back to it later. And we're going to be doing this. Someone had asked, are we going to do this more regularly? And we're planning to do it at least once a month. And so we'll always give you at least a few days of notice ahead of time. We are going to kind of mix up what time we do it, because we know we have an international audience. So it might not be the same time, might not work for you next time, but it'll make other people able to join, and we'll give you a heads up next time.
So you can ask questions as well.
Yep, and whenever
you can't make it.
whenever we post ahead of time, you'll be able to put questions there in case you have one and you're not going to be able to make it live. And any questions we didn't answer here, we also kind of put into the pool of questions to pull from next time.
Yep. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to play along with us, and we really enjoyed it. And I really genuinely want to thank you for what you do, for your commitment to growth. And I know I say this sometimes, when I say a message or I say email or even send a group message or whatever it is. And it might get old to some people, but I really genuinely believe it, and I genuinely feel it, that I am so grateful for everything that each and every one of you do to make a difference in the life of other people. I am so grateful for the time that you take to learn and to develop, because it says a lot about you. A lot of people talk about, I want to make this difference in my life, I want to grow and I want to develop, but you're actually doing it. You're taking the time to actually do it. You're taking the time to actually try to contribute. You're growing, you're developing, and you're making a difference. Even if you don't see the difference that you're making in the life of other people, you're planting those seeds. So it might not make a difference right away, but maybe in 2 years, they're ready for that seed to blossom. And I've had this happen with some people that I work with, that maybe 2 years later, they contacted me. They say, you told me something a year or 2 years ago, and it just hit me. It just really hit me now.
That happens to me all the time.
So always keep in mind that what you're doing is you're planting seeds to make a difference long-term in people's lives. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for your commitment, and we look forward to celebrating your success. Keep letting us know what's happening in your life and what you're doing so we can celebrate with you. And we love the fact that you are supporting each other in the group. I love to go on the Facebook group and see people answering each other and supporting each other, because we're in all this for the same reason. We're trying to make a difference in this world. So thank you for being part of that journey with us.
You guys are the best tribe ever.
Yes.
And when people talk about, that you need to be working with people that you really like to work with and that you really love, we genuinely love you.
Yes.
It's so exciting to know that here we are, slaving away, making this content, and people are actually taking it and using it and then paying it forward to help other people. There's nothing that could possibly be more gratifying than that. And so we love you and we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Take care.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
one. Bye-bye.